Site of Minnesota's first synagogue. From generation to generation, Mount Zion Temple, 1856. I was not aware of how often they call their buildings temples, and then people say they don't have a temple yet. So many of their houses of prayer are called temples. It's amazing. They built a wood frame, American Gothic style building for $750. St. James African Methodist Episcopal Church was moved to Fuller Street. In 1878, Mount Zion formally adopted a reform Jewish practices and joined the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, now Union for the Reform of Judaism, has ever been a part of the Reform movement ever since. The first Jewish congregation in Minnesota, Mount Zion Hebrew Association, was founded in 1856 by 8 German Jewish families who came up the Mississippi from St. Louis: Joseph Ullman, Isidore Rose, where the fur business. Other founders were in the clothing and liquor business. Mount Zion's charter was signed by Minnesota Territorial Governor Williams Gorman in 1857. The advent of streetcar, let's see here. Holly and Avon. Panoramic portrait of Mount Zion congregation taken May 6. There's something significant about May 6, I can't remember. 1922. Circuit. 1922 is when Rome fell without Mussolini firing a shot at the March on Rome. The cradle of democracy falls to someone who has no government qualifications, largely because of his Jewish mistress, and her birthday, I just found out, is the same birthday as Leah Rabin, the prime minister's wife, who went from being a prime minister's wife to being a widow, when her husband was assassinated. I feel really close to Leah Rabin. And let's see here. Mount Zion Temple, 1856, celebrating 150 years. Alright. Mount Zion moved to Summit in Hamelin. The building was designed by architect Eric Mendelsohn. King Eric, Saint Eric is the patron saint of Sweden, by the way. And it's, I wonder what the reform is that they have going on, but definitely reform is always good. It's always wise if you do it the right way. In the 1890s, large waves of Eastern European Jewish immigrants arrived in St. Paul to address their needs. The women of Mount Zion founded United Jewish Charities, now Jewish Family Service, and a neighborhood house, now housed at the Wellstone Center on Robbie Street. Summit and Hamelin. At the same site, congregation built brick structure in Moorish style as a new sign of civic support. Prominent non-Jewish citizens, including Alexander Ramsey and Henry Sibley, donated to the project. When the congregation moved in 1904, this building was sold to B'nai Abraham, one of several Jewish congregations, all Orthodox. So I just pray, all of you lovely Jews who have died very tragically in the Holocaust. I pray Dan and Benjamin and Judah and Issachar, son of Leah's slave, and then Naphtali, the brother that I did not know that Dan had. And Naphtali is depicted sometimes as a stag, a deer with horns, or like a reindeer with horns. But sometimes by Jacob he's called a doe, actually, who gives birth to fawns, beautiful fawns, and that's actually what in the Song of Solomon, that's actually what a woman's breasts are, is twin fawns. And it says twin fawns of a gazelle, and gazelle is one of the meanings of the name Leah. And today is a day that's linked to it's the Battle of Lepanto, called the Battle that Saved the West. And it's linked to both the Arab moon goddess, source of the sun, and the solar miracle that the Virgin Mary promised when she said, "I'm Our Lady of the Rosary." She promised a miracle October 13th, and various things that were going to happen in the future. And even communists that hated the religion were writing about what they saw, this solar miracle of the sun dancing for 12 minutes straight. And so, yeah, it is interesting because Fatima was the name of the daughter's Prophet Muhammad's daughter, and nobody knows where the actual remains are of like skeleton bones or anything of the Virgin Mary or Fatima, the Prophet's favorite daughter, who named after the moon goddess, source of the sun. And one of the reasons she was actually killed by the Sunnis was because she was actually liked more by people. Like pagans loved her, like thought she was like an incarnation of the moon divinity. They said she was glowing, she was courageous when she had to shield her father because he was getting, guts of camels thrown at him and stuff like that. She would do that, use herself as a shield and take some of the, whatever the weight. She was his favorite daughter, the only surviving daughter that I was reading about that didn't die, like that really lived a good life, and she was supposed to be the successor. It was supposed to be her husband Ali was supposed to succeed the Prophet Muhammad, and of course they're not going to want that because the Arabs used to have the most female-dominant religion, where devotion to God, mother goddess of any type, a female goddess, their idolatry was the most female-dominant. Whereas, like, women govern, a female goddess governs politics and religion and warfare and love and beauty and so they really did not like the idea that these Arabs that were very much into wanted to keep the mother goddess alive, that they could see Fatima, the ancient prehistoric Arab moon goddess who existed before the world was created. And she used to quote Proverbs a lot as well. Before the Quran was written, she would quote Proverbs, and Proverbs actually has a woman speaking directly to the reader about what it was like being a woman when the creation of the world was going on, and she was actually helping God create the world. And so wisdom, and there are different incarnations of different virtues and different vices that are actually sentient beings too. And by the way, you can also, when King Solomon got the Solomon ring and he could control demons, the first female demon that appeared to him said that she was actually created by an echo, they call her. She was not actually created by God. She was created by the imagination of a person who spoke her into existence, and his echo, that's what she said. She in the woods there was an echo, and some guy, like, with his imagination spoke her into existence. And that's exactly what the Japanese have been saying for a long time. And they were the first ones to come up with the Trinity, and they, three different people that are praying to each other and, are better at different offices and vocations and strengths and whatever than the other person, and they pray to each other, and yet they're the same God. The Japanese were saying that before Christianity even happened, and that's why the Japanese were saying we have to not even have dogmas, because the name kami, we have to keep coming up with new names for all these different types of kami that are being created by, essentially by, they're not fallen angels. They had the problem with the female spider demons, woman demons, and the goblin spiders and stuff, but those might have actually been like types of Nephilim spirits, or like the female versions of the Watchers that did not get the maidens pregnant or something. I don't know how that works, but yeah, it's interesting if you do study the Ring of Solomon. I mean, there is a book that is accepted by many people as being authentically inspired, and anyway, it can give you an idea of, if he had anything. A lot of people do say that, I mean, we can speak things into existence because the Spirit of God, Yahweh, has said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And with his imagination, I mean, Scripture does say, if you believe in your heart and you can speak what is not, and it becomes, it talks about like what he did to the fig tree. The fig tree dried up to never produce fruit again, and he said you can do the same thing, and you can ask a tree to uproot itself and go throw itself in the ocean, and it's going to do that. And I know that in the material world that's not going to happen, but in a spiritual sense, what he's basically saying is, with enough faith and using your imagination and your words, you can create and you can deify. And some of these evil spirits that were presenting themselves to King Solomon, they were worshipped as gods and goddesses. Like the seven companions of one of the moon goddesses were seven women with seven different names, and they, kind of like wisdom is a woman who has, she's the personification of a virtue. Some of them have the personification of the vice, and that's their name. But